Yeah, what we're going to talk about today is a cash flow use case of one of our clients who is a Fortune 100 tech company. And presenters today be myself, Dan Skiendziel. I am a senior solutions director and client partner at Simplify. I've been with the firm for about 7 years now. And prior to that, 25 plus years in the FP&A space. Well versed in the area of cash flow and other things related to the FP&A function. And with me today is Cole McVay, who's going to be presenting the demo portion. Cole, you want to give yourself an intro?
Yeah, thank you for that, Dan. So, as Dan said, I am one of the consultants and implementation partners we have here at Simplify. Been doing this for about 5 or so years. 1 year with Simplify. So, as Dan said, we've got a pretty cool little use case of a more vanilla version of a cash flow planning that we're excited to show y'all, and then hopefully you can start to imagine to where this could be usable in your business and your processes today. So, thank you for that, Dan.
Sure thing. Thanks, Cole. All right. So with that, let's move into just a quick agenda, what we'll look at today. As always, we want to make sure that you guys know who we are as a company and what we do, and then we'll make that short as possible, and then so we can jump right into the content. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at who Simplify Solutions is. First, first of all, first of all, though, we can see that we work with companies that turn to Simplify because of our unique blend of product and process expertise. I mean, we have the CIO types, the CFO types, all on our team with vast experience. And we provide full support throughout your customer journey, all the way from selecting and buying and implementing, adopting, and even expanding those SAP solutions. We do have a holistic approach, and it solidifies your tech investment, ensuring not only you integrate smoothly, but also foster sustainable growth for your company. And then by partnering with Simplify, as these companies have, you'll gain trusted ally that helps you navigate the complexities of SAP solutions and touch points, and ultimately driving your long-term success. So with that, Simplify is a firm of partners focused on business process design. And as well as content and automation and implementing SAP planning, analytics, and consolidation solutions. We're a perfect combination of service and platform applications with our Planify content, which is kind of a prepackaged solutions using that FP&A and CFO expertise that we have to pull together applications that are going to, really hit a lot of the main points of most businesses. Using that as a starting point so that you can realize value quicker in your implementation than starting from scratch. But all of this has allowed us to the result of becoming the go-to partner for SAP in the planning and analytics space related to SAC. Very proud of that accomplishment. So one thing that we have, if we take a quick look at some of the get rid of that, sorry. Take a look at some of the offerings that we have in our Planify prepackaged content. You can see there's a wide range of applications there, ranging from pipeline sales and revenue planning, all the way through your normal P&L and balance sheet, but also HR and capital planning, treasury, liquidity planning. Some of these applications are also available in the SAP store. So if you were to go to the SAP store and search on Simplify, you'll be able to see some of these solutions. Now, how we operate that or combine those applications, yes, some of these can be done standalone, but as you can see just in the basic graphic here is, we can have pipeline and sales planning and all the other, we'll call it individual applications, but those are all going to, feed their resulting data into your expense and SG&A planning, revenue margin planning, everything culminating in that P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, um, financial plan. What these are going to do for you is take away uh, or replace those detailed, cumbersome, monstrous Excel spreadsheets you have in each of those areas that I know I've used in the past. And I know a lot of companies do, small companies and Fortune 100 companies, to be honest. We all do it because we love Excel. But this is a process that's going to take your FP&A organization to another level. So if we just take a quick look at FP&A, or I'm sorry, Planify FP&A Cloud architecture is another one of our offerings where we can, we like I said, we built some of these applications directly on SAP Analytics Cloud, and what that does is we can offer, with a single license. Um, working with your ERP and perform, for example, consolidations, planning, and reporting in a single application, as opposed to what you may have is a application for your consolidations, maybe a different one for your BI, and yet a separate one, a combination of Excel and some other application for your planning. Still having the consistent ERP here, but what SAC offers you is a place to put that all in a single application, managing it in one place, a single source of the truth for both your actuals, forecasts, and your plans. Okay. So that's enough about Simplify. Hopefully that gave you a quick overview. As always, you can always communicate directly with myself or Cole with any additional questions. But before I turn it over to Cole, I'd like to kind of set the stage for this customer use case. Then Cole will take you through that cash flow demo. And also, please, if you do have any questions, like Corinne pointed out, use the little question area in the GoToWebinar app there, and we'll try to get to them right away. I'll be looking at those throughout the webinar. So let's paint a picture of the legacy state of the cash flow process at this company. Now, understand that this company is a Fortune 100 company, $50+ billion in annual revenue in the tech industry. And yes, using Microsoft Excel to pull together their cash flow. Not trying to badmouth the company in any way. It's just that, eventually they come to realization that they need to do something. And here's, like I said, where they are. Microsoft Excel kind of interspersed with SAP BPC source data, just having data everywhere, no real single source of the truth outside of that final Excel document. And really, with that landscape also, it limits the direct user input to the process, and which is obviously not desirable. I mean, I don't want to steal Cole's thunder here, but SAC is going to allow them to have that single source of truth, open up the process to users, bring great value to the process. It's going to give them the functionality in the process that they never had before. And most importantly, it's going to provide them clear, concise insights to their cash positions at any point in time. So before I ramble on about all the use case there, I'm going to turn it over to Cole so he can jump through the demo here and show you what's really helping this company succeed. Cole?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and just kind of walk through what we consider to be a bit of a watered down use case, but just still kind of hit all the notes, right? And the reason I use the term watered down is we have some simple functionality in here to give you an idea of what is possible. But I do want to, allow y'all to keep in mind that anything that may be unique to your own business, right? Anything complex, anything that might just be for your own industry, right? As Dan had mentioned, this is more tech specific. But any, sort of use case you may have, that is something that we can build. So cash flow in general, obviously, is a vital part of every sort of business, right? Something you need to keep track of. But at the same time, it doesn't involve a huge set of accounts, right? So while working with a smaller set of data, it always seems to have a very large impact, right? And like Dan had said before, Excel reigns king overall, right? In terms of FP&A, that'll never go away, right? But what this will allow you to do is to move on from that as far as a planning and reporting mechanism, and maybe to have Excel as kind of just one-off use cases, right? Where if users are still comfortable, they can pull data into there from without outside of SAC. But really, to have this be the single source of truth, where all of your planning, reporting, calculations, where everything is going to live. So as Dan had said, in previous times, right, when everyone would connect to Excel, everyone would have their own different version of the same document, looking at maybe the same set of data in different points in time. The beauty of having everything within this cloud-based tool, though, is everything is going to be here available for every user all in real time, right? So any changes that I may make on the fly are going to be immediately available to Dan and really anyone else on the team. So if I'm looking here, right, we have our general set of instructions, our landing pages, we call it, and this will allow us to kind of bounce around to everything we need. So within this landing page, we have a couple different, what we consider to be data action starters. So these are, what you may have in Excel as, just different sets of calculations, right? Different initializations to the data, where maybe you may have had to copy and paste things before. This will take care of all the heavy lifting for you, right? So I'll come back to some of these in a moment, but I kind of want to sort of start out in just a simple report, right? Our general statement of cash flow and just how easy and how seamless it is for users to come in here, access all their data, filter back and forth, and see everything at a glance, right? So again, cash flow is traditionally a fairly simple set of data, right, that has a large impact. So if I'm looking on here, right, I can see all my statement of cash flow accounts. I have it arranged neatly on this pretty table, and I've got these set of filters up here at the top. So for example, if I was a corporate user and Dan was in charge of one of my business units, let's call it corporate, right? I can have Dan go in, take a look at his report, and then I can see the same thing from the top level, and I can just take a look at those two. And then right on the fly, I can see the same thing that he has seen without needing to exchange different Excel documents, right? Without having to, email back and forth. Everything is collaborative here within the cloud-based system. So that makes things a lot easier. There is no lag time between data. Everything is right here, exactly where I need it to be. So in the case of actuals, a lot of times we'll connect to, if we're talking about SAP, some sort of ECC system, right, where all of my transactions are taking place, right? And then from, let's call it 1, 2, 3 different databases, I can combine everything here with just the click of a button, and it'll arrange it neatly in the way that we have set up in these reports, right? So if I want to get more granular, expanding is as simple as you might imagine, just clicking one of these carrots, and then I can drill down into the numbers. Now, for our actuals, for our set of data, we are working with a mock set, right? So you'll notice a lot of similar values throughout the case, but obviously, it'll correctly distribute for however many set of accounts that you have. So if I'm looking here at actuals and I say, okay, I'm looking at this, I like where things are sitting, but I need to start to make some adjustments, right? I know that, from my ECC system, after I've imported my values, things are close, but they're not exactly right. So what I could do is within my report, I can go over here to my set of actuals adjustments, right? And so because everything still lives within this one system, all of my data is still within here. It's really easy to create, myriads of reports that all kind of represent the same thing, but allow me to have different sets of functionality within it, right? So while everything is eventually going to be driven off of my statement of cash flow, now I'm going to get a little bit deeper into things, right? So again, if I'm sitting here looking at my actuals, I could say, okay, here are my imported values, right? So again, if I'm looking at the one corporate use case, I could say, okay, I like this value of 137, but I think it's actually going to be 25 less than that, right? So I would bring this in, subtract my 25 here, and then back in my statement of cash flow, if I'm looking at the same account, same location, everything is going to be reflected here as well. So obviously a seemingly minor change, but all of that will reflect off the bat in the same fashion, right? So you can see when I subtract it here, it distributes across the quarters pretty neatly, and it makes input of data much easier. So you'll notice that I chose to enter in on the annual value for all of 2025. SAC works in a way that you no longer have to know the exact data point that you want to enter in on if you just want to do top level adjustments, right? I could enter in for the entire year and it will evenly distribute across every single period that I have available. So in this case, it'll be every single month of 2025. So again, I could work with smaller numbers. It could be 25. I can go as large as I want to as many different combinations of data as I would like. So in this case, again, it takes that and it distributes that same value all the way down. And let's say, for example, I want everything to go to a singular period. That's very easy to do as well. There are some very easy tweaks we could do to any one of these input forms or stories that on the fly, I could distribute the data however I'd like while still having this very fluid data entry option. So within this, I could say, okay, well, I like what I'm seeing here for all of my statement of cash flow accounts. Let me just take a look at one singular base level. So I could drill down to however I want if I know my hierarchy well. Or what I could do is I could search, right? So I could say, let me look at the one right there of long-term debt. And then what that'll do is it'll filter out all the noise, and then I could just select the one I want. And then here on my filter, I'll have all of my business units displayed, all for this long-term debt, right? And so I can make adjustments as needed. And then whenever I'm done, I could put everything back and get back to my nice, pretty report. So filtering back and forth is as easy as the filtering may be in Excel, except again, this time you don't have to worry about, okay, well, now I've made my adjustments. Can someone else see it right away? Do I need to email it to them? Do I need to send a Teams message, Slack, carrier pigeon, however you want to get the data to them, right? Everything lives here instead so that there is no downtime. It makes for seamless collaboration and planning, at the snap of a finger. So once I've made my adjustments here, I can go in and publish my data. And so what that allows it to do is it blasts it out to everyone who has access to this set of data. So one of the challenges that oftentimes businesses run into is the number of users, right? So let's say, we're planning cash flow. We have 150 different users that we need inputs from. Well, in a previous Excel world, I would have to compile, probably down through different channels. One user will collect 10 inputs, then they would pass it up to another 10 inputs, right? And then over a period of weeks, it would all kind of come together to finally have my set of data. Now, in this time, though, I can have each individual end user enter in their set of data, right, within their own security. So that way, they would only have to be concerned with what's happening here in the corporate input, right? And then for me, as a top level user, I could see everything in real time as it's being inputted. So you'll notice that again, we're seeing more of what are called data actions here in the system. And so these allow us to run specific calculations that your business may need. So for example, if I enter in, this minus 25, right? If I need this to be distributed, pushed to another data source, if I have some other offsets that need to happen, all of that could be done behind the scenes, literally with a click of a button, right? So I could enter in certain parameters here to have it run, and then the system will take care of the rest. So if anyone here is familiar with BPC, think of it as, one of the stored procedures that you may have, right? Except this time you could kick it off without having things happen automatically. Now, the beauty of this is it gives you an opportunity to review your data, run your calculations without immediately blasting out to everyone else. And we can have that as sort of a privatized version to me to do my what if scenarios until I'm ready to move on to the next. So we've talked about actuals a little bit, right? Simple reporting, simple adjustments. So now let's talk about, really the big key figure here, which is going to be planning, right? So if I'm sitting here taking a look and, we've got all of our planning, all of our actuals, let's say close through June, right? Starting July, I want to update my annual budget for a latest estimate for the current period that I have, right? So if I go in here, I've got, again, all of my actuals. I've got my June latest estimate, right? This has been finalized. I've already signed off on this. This is my current version of the budget. Now, if I come in to July, right, and I'm ready to continue to budget, I can create a new version, a new scenario of data on the fly seamlessly, right? So what I could do is I can create a new version here, and I would say July latest estimate, and then I can create it as a planning forecast, rolling forecast. So in this case, I'm going to do a rolling forecast because I'm going to continue to build off of the different estimate versions that I already have, planning versions, in addition to the actuals. So I'm going to go ahead and create this new version, and you'll see that as soon as I create it, it's available right here, right? So obviously I just created this version. There's no data that's available for it yet, right? So the next step I probably want to do is initialize whatever I have. So if I'm looking in here and I want to initialize my current latest estimate, right? So my target version is going to be this new version that I just created, my July latest estimate. And I know that, hey, I'm going to run actuals, let's call it through May, and then I'm going to pick up the forecast values from June on, right? So all that would do is, I fill in wherever I want time periods to pivot, and this gives me a lot of flexibility, right? To say, well, maybe I'm still finalizing for some odd reason. I'm still sharing up the books for actuals back in April, right? So I can take actuals from just January to March and take forecast data from then on out, right? So I know I've been pulling it from my June latest estimate, and so I'm going to go ahead and run this. So what this is doing is instead of having to go to different sets of reports, different sets of data, different databases, because everything lives here within the system, I could go ahead and stage my data, right? So I know from what I said from January to May, those are going to be my actual set of data. And then from everything else is going to be what I had in that June latest estimate. So this is a really easy way to get a starting point for my latest estimate. I don't need to reinvent the wheel for data that probably already exists somewhere else, right? Now, again, because this is a latest estimate, there's a pretty good chance that, okay, I'm happy with what we have, but I need to make some minor tweaks, right? So what I could do is I could jump over here to a different planning form, right? So we saw the one for actuals offset. And now what we're going to have is a place where we can adjust our latest estimate data. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And then while this is loading up, we can see everything that I had here again for my June LE. So what I'm going to do is I'm concerned with my new July latest estimate, right? So once again, these values are going to be similar because I pulled in a copy from a certain point on of my June LE latest estimate. So what I can do instead is, okay, for this long-term debt, we'll use the same account. It's not going to be quite at 53. Maybe it's going to be bumped up to 85, right? So I could make the adjustment there, and then I could see all the changes it's going to make cascade all the way through, and then it's going to adjust my overall totals for that one singular account, right? So now that I've made my adjustment here, that same value is going to show up in my statement of cash flow for my latest estimate model. So I could see that the minor change here. So anytime we see this yellow, that means that a data point has changed. And it's as simple as that, right? Making a change in one spot immediately pops up in another, right? So it's incredibly easy to adjust data on the fly without having to, again, enter into one spot, jump over to another, right? And then have to continuously maintain where data has to live because everything is all here seamlessly. So it's an incredibly flexible tool, as we've seen, right? Entering in data in one spot trickles down to everything else. And then again, the collaboration is as easy as once I hit publish data, it'll become widely available for everyone within the system as long as they have security access to the set of data that I have. So the calculations, again, that we're seeing thus far staging this data is incredibly simple, right? But open up your imagination. Anything that you are doing today, right, that you may consider to be complex, unique, right, all of those can be built in here within these data actions, and it can be done incredibly seamlessly and on the fly, right? So there doesn't need to be copy paste here, run these arithmetic within Excel. All of those are already built in, and then everything else will take care of it from there. So there is a bit of flexibility that we could, enter in, right, to where we can have a data change trigger another action, right? So let's say I don't want to have it to where I click the button. I can just enter in a number, have it all calculate for me, and then again, continue to trickle down to everyone else. So I'm going to go ahead and publish my data. And again, that makes it widely available. Now, let's say that I've started making some data changes here, right, for my cash flow, and I've run into some issues. All I would need to do is, instead of publishing my data, if I make this, if I fat finger instead of 50, if I type in 5,000, I say, okay, that's probably too much. All I need to do is simply roll back the clock, right? So I can go up here and I can hit revert data. And what that's going to do is it's going to flip it back, no harm, no foul, right? So again, entering in any of my cash flow data, making these adjustments is as simple as typing in, hitting enter, and then walking away, calling it a day. Now, probably one of the better features it has is the ability to compare versions side by side, at a glance, right? So if I'm back here and I want to look at what we consider to be a cycle over cycle report. So what this does is it allows me to compare, maybe my June versus my July latest estimates, my actuals versus my different latest estimates, right? And I can get all of these different variances at a glance for whatever singular business unit that I want. And we'll just jump down to one right here. And we could see, okay, well, for some odd reason, I'm going from my actuals to my estimate, and I'm dropping 11,000, right? And so there's a couple different ways that I can easily communicate this within the system, right? So for someone who's a planner, I could go in and I could either enter a comment on the data itself, or I could use the collaboration tool that lives within the system itself. So I can come up here, I can create a little discussion. And then I could, send it over to my different teams. So let's say I want to send it over to my Simplify team. So everyone who's a member of this, right? And let's say in my different planning group, I could say, hello, can everyone please look at the corporate business unit to check the variance between different versions. And so what this allows us to do is it eliminates the need of needing to go outside to different emails, to different Teams messages, right? And I can have all of my different collaboration living within here. And again, keep things as seamless and as single source of truth as possible. So if I wanted to sit here and compare my previous June LE against my July latest estimate, I could see that I've actually increased, right? Maybe I consider the fact that my data is going to go up. I think I'm going to do better than expected, right? And I could even drill down again easily to the individual accounts to where I can identify these different variances, right? So I could see, I'm going to be increasing on my chip production, right? So that's going to go up another 31 units. And again, it's easy for me to see, it's easy for everyone else to see, right? So for all these different sort of industries, for whatever use case may be, there's an easy solution, an easy report that can be made to give everything available at a glance, right? So the big key points that we wanted to kind of highlight here as far as the cash flow process goes is, even though it is a smaller set of data, it's incredibly impactful, right? So I can make any adjustments I need here in the cash flow. And as Dan was saying before, ultimately what I'm trying to get to is my top level reporting, right? Maybe my P&L. Maybe I want to push this to different balance sheet data, right, into that data set. So what this allows me to do is, since all of those different models all exist within this same cloud-based system, I don't have to lift it, from here into the P&L. I don't have to export it to a different system. I don't have to sit there and hopefully manage different latencies that may happen because of refresh times, right? All I need to do is click this button and it'll push everything from my July latest estimate over into the P&L, right? So whatever numbers that I enter in here are going to become immediately available for anyone who needs to make key decisions based on the cash flow adjustments that we are making today. So what this allows us to do, again, and I'm harping on collaboration because that is the key here, right? Everything is all located within one system with no downtime and seamless planning, right? That's the biggest takeaway that I hope everyone can glean from these different use cases, right? I could sit there and compare versions. I can initialize different versions that I need, right? And I could do my planning literally just by typing in a number and walking away. I don't need to sit there and go to Excel, go to Power BI, go to ECC, right? And enter in data there and hope that in time, downstream data can get there by the time that I need it. Everything all lives within here. So we're not necessarily going to show this today, but I did want to kind of point out, as Dan said, Excel reigns king, right? Everyone in finance, everyone in FP&A, everyone loves it, right? And then that includes within our own cash flow module. So there is a very nice Excel add-in that exists today that we can build reports, maybe not quite as pretty, but it'll look exactly the same within the Excel landscape that we can make our adjustments there and maybe an environment that users are more friendly with, right? And so again, this gives us the flexibility that we need to have end users in the best possible space that they have to easily make their inputs, make their adjustments, right? View their numbers in the reports live in real time. And so any adjustments that I make here within the cloud-based system is become immediately accessible within Excel, right? And ideally, hopefully, we no longer need Excel or anything offline, but that gives us that extra flexibility again to be able to do it in an environment that people are more comfortable with. So today we've talked about, again, a relatively simple use case for the cash flow, but that's the beauty of it, right? Is things can be this simplistic while still allowing the end users to plan with what they need, right? We can have 150 concurrent users in the system all at once with no downtime, no lag time, right? No issues within the cloud-based system supporting it. So everything that we need, again, here is going to be in my finalized report at a glance. So any changes that I do make are easily reflected here, make my adjustments, and then I sign off. So a process that maybe took 10, 15, 20 days before can now be done hopefully in an afternoon, right? Spend the next day reviewing, sign off, push it to my top level profit and loss, and then we're good to go. So that was kind of everything that I wanted to highlight here today as far as our cash flow process, right? And again, the biggest takeaway I want to hammer home is no longer do you need 100 different versions of the same set of data, right? No longer do you need to have to compile everything in Excel and have to shuffle it around, enter in data, and hope that it makes it there in time. Instead, I have everything I need in a report as simple, as seamless as possible, all at a glance, right? All by just logging in to my cloud-based system online. So I wanted to kind of open it up and see if we have any questions, Dan, that maybe anyone might have submitted throughout the chat.
Yeah, sure, Cole. I do have one here.
Sure.
Um, I know it looks like there's, a fair amount of calculations taking place, with the buttons you were uh, using there. Is that something that's really driven by the business, or is that where IT gets involved, or is, you know, just trying to understand the question. The questioner is just trying to understand, what's the level of input in the process from IT versus the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like you mentioned, these calculations, what we call data actions within the system, are, in my mind, a perfect blend between the two, right? So, a lot of times, business users know exactly how things need to look, right? How things need to perform, which accounts go where. And so, what often happens is, they can have their own input, and if they're comfortable enough, it's as simple as dragging and dropping different sets of accounts, right? And performing the calculations there. Now, if that's something that maybe the end user isn't as comfortable with, it's incredibly simple for most, if any, IT teams to go in there, write a couple lines of code, and then just run away with it, right? Everything is going to be there at the top level, right? And I just click a button, and then everything is done at the base level. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Dan. And
Yep.
I saw that there is another question here, that, asking when the data change, the high level data, are there options to change how it's disaggregated? Or is it always evenly distributed? And that's a phenomenal question. So right now, by default, data is distributed evenly throughout the system, but it's incredibly easy to make a minor change as to how we want it distributed. For example, if I want all the weight going to one individual base account, if I want everything going to the last period of a quarter where I'm entering data, if I want it all to go into one particular business unit, right? Maybe I want everything going into corporate for my offsets. All of those are incredibly easy configurations to be made, and are, more or less out of the box functionality within the system. So if I enter in, let's call it 6,000 here. Right now, we have it evenly distributing down to all the business units across all the quarters, which if I want to just make top level adjustments, great, right? But if I want to have a targeted location of where I want things to enter into, it's incredibly easy for me to configure that on the model and say, okay, when things are entered in this top level, I want my distribution to go all to this one location for this time period, right? So we see that often when we're talking about balance sheet data, or again, here within cash flow. If I want everything to hit in the last period of a quarter for my reporting, I could have it trickle down in that way. So one of the things, and the gentleman who asked the question made a great point. Let me go ahead and come over here. And while I'm doing that, another question came in. When the change high level data, are the options? Oh, same one. Clicked the wrong question. And someone also said, can you block a high level change from impacting a lower level dimension year, aka a certain business unit? Yes, that was actually what I was going to talk about here, within some of our other input forms. So a lot of times, right, again, we want to block out certain individual inputs, right? Whether it be maybe the data source we're bringing actuals on, maybe a certain organizational unit that I don't want any of my adjustments to hit into. So all I need to do is configure a data lock. So this can be done within within the individual end users table, or it could be done on the back end to lock in a certain spot to where if I enter in, let's say, for example, these are my actuals here, I want to lock Q1 and Q2. So if I enter in at the top level for my entire 2025, I don't want to touch the actuals that I've initialized. I can have that difference in value equally distribute to just Q3 and Q4, which are going to be my further forecasting periods, right? So all of that allows me a level of flexibility to choose to how I want things to disaggregate, right? For how, it makes sense for my business. A lot of times, again, we want everything to go into a corporate business unit. If I'm adjusting up or down for my offset, that's very easy to do, to lock certain combinations of data and then allow the disaggregation of data either evenly or however I identify it as everywhere else. So thank you for whoever answered that question. That was a great use case there.
Very good. That looks like that's all the questions, Cole. So what we could do is maybe just wrap it up from there. I'll go ahead and share my screen back here. And just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Uh, I know your time is valuable, but it's always good to see what the tools are available to us out there. Um, One thing I'd like just to leave you with too, some of our contact info. This is for Simplify Solutions directly, our LinkedIn, our YouTube channel, and our website. So feel free to take a screenshot of that, catch up with us later if you would
Can't
like.
see your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had shared that. My bad. Thanks, Corinne. Just got to hit the share button. And there we go. There are the QR codes I was talking about that no one could see. Thank you again, everyone, and appreciate your time today.